Hello everyone, welcome to the stream. I am a little bit delayed, had a little bit of an issue preparing that held me back, but we're mostly ready now. Yeah, unfortunately I didn't get time to do sort of the live standings sheet. So unfortunately we don't have that for today's stream, but should still be all right. So we don't have a lot of time today. I do have a hard out at 9 o'clock. I have to be somewhere for 9 o'clock. So, yes, we better get move on. We have 10 cars running up the hill today. So, yeah, let's not waste any more time. And, yeah, we will start off. First car that we have running up the hill today, Super Drop Sunset Mark 1. If you remember back to the event last Saturday, this is a car based off a Crown Victoria. It is one of our C-Class cars. So it is. So if I reset here, we do have a nice interior cam. And we will set off for our first run. Unfortunately, being a little bit rushed, I didn't get time to practice in any of the cars. So we'll be sort of learning as we go. Luckily, compared to Goodwood, we've got much more time to get used to the cars. So we do. So yeah, the Crown Victoria, very heavy car. It's 2,000 kilos. I don't remember what tires this is on. But good evening, Aris. But it does slide around quite a bit. Of course, both C-Class cars we have running up, producing lift. So they are. Whereas when we get to the later cars, they end up creating more downforce than they weigh at just 200 kilometers an hour, which is probably round about the top speed that we'll see from those cars later on. But yeah, of course, it was Arizona running this car. They also made this car. But they were running the car up on last Saturday. And it was going decently well. They were the only person running a C-Class car, so they were kind of in a run by themselves up the hill. But unfortunately, they never got to see the top of the hill. They didn't even make it out of the trees, unfortunately. We're getting to the part now where they Had an unfortunate little tap on this guardrail on the left hand side there. That broke the steering. And the car unable to then steer, of course, we'd fall down the cliff on the right hand side where it would lay to rest. Of course, this time we do have a second C-Class car that we're running up the hill. But that car does have more than double the horsepower, is a little bit lighter as well, so theoretically it should be quicker. But it'll be nice to put a time to this Crown Victoria. And so I can see the top of the hill. Two tons of mild discontent. This car's going to be quite sketchy through some of the high-speed corners later on. Getting to whopping top speed here of about 113 kilometers an hour. You have to say the effort that went into this car is to be respected. The rev gauge works, the speedometer works. I don't think the temp gauges quite work, but that can be excused. There might be a working steering wheel too, but I'm pretty sure my steering wheel's turned off in my Beam settings since I'm using a steering wheel myself. So it's always odd having an in-game steering wheel as well as a physical one in front of you. But yeah, we're about 8 kilometers up the hill now. Sound dampening gives a very comfy vibe. Yeah, it does make it feel like a very casual run, very casual way to start off. Similar way to how we started Goodwood with the Ford Model T. Now we're getting close to the halfway point. Quite the send there through that corner, and we only had a minimum speed of about 164 kilometers an hour. We're getting to the halfway point here at roughly 7 minutes, so we're looking for maybe about a 14-minute run. Yeah, Arizona did make the Model T as well. You can imagine the later runs will be not too dissimilar to this, just at sort of about double the speed, roughly. what speed will we get up to here? There's 110. Shift up a gear. Have to take it a little bit easy through this right-hander. Don't want to be too tight for the run into this hairpin. Comfy car specialist. I mean, I will say, when you do get this car sliding, which it does very easily on this gravel surface, it does actually slide quite well. Still using a bit of handbrake to help the car rotate into the corners. At the 9-minute mark, the mark that some of the faster cars will be aiming for. Little quick into here, but say a little quick relative for this car. Yes, it is a full auto. I don't know why the UI app still says manual. It's not even a modded UI app, it's stock in-game one, and it doesn't seem to work outside for automatic cars. So we're again more towards the top, more towards the high-speed section. Which, well, relative to some of the other cars, won't be very high speed in this car. Will be nice to get to speeds higher than the speed limit for motorways. Still gonna be a little bit careful. Of course, this car does generate lift, so when we get to these higher speeds, it's not gonna be any easier to drive. 150 kilometers an hour there. Good. Try and make sure to turn it in early for this right-hander. Relaxed but consistent drive. Yes, it does make lift. Actually makes a similar amount of lift to the next car that we're going to be running. Bit of understeer there. Luckily in this car you are going so slow that when you do get understeer you have plenty of time to rectify your trajectory through the corner. By 4 kilometers to go now. Biggest braking zone on the hill, especially for the Crown Vic. Will we fare through this right-hander? Gonna be quite brave. We're not going too fast, so the bumps don't worry us too much. Really getting close to the edge of the road on the right-hand side, entering this left-hander. Not too difficult to place this car at the speeds that it is going. This will be a difficult braking zone, can be a bit tricky to see when this hairpin is coming up with the lack of guardrail. There's the finish just up to the right. Final hairpin here. Little bit wide here. We're past the 14-minute mark. So the final time will be a 14:20.6. And that will set the benchmark for our next C-Class car. And yes, it'll of course be the first car on our leaderboard. Let's see what we have up next. Next up, we have the Pikes Maroon. I'm probably butchering that pronunciation, but it will have to do. Iris, to be honest with you, I don't know what button I have set to hazards. Something is not working. Why is this thing not working? One moment. This? Oh, this? Ah, yes. Alright, so here we go. Our next car. The Pikes Maroon. Which I'm still going to butcher the pronunciation. It is making 532 horsepower at about 1900 kilos. So we'll see how it compares to the Crown Victoria. It does have a nice first-person view for us. Oh, how is it in reverse? Probably an auto gearbox thing. So let's see, an even bigger car. Not quite the biggest car we have to run up the hill. Suspension much softer than the Crown Victoria. Which you might think on a gravel road is an advantage, but the Pikes Peak gravel is somewhat smooth. Not until you get to taking little cuts, so that's kind of where this car could gain a little bit of an advantage, where other cars will sort of bounce around cuts like that. The Maroon here should be able to handle it with ease. Another car with an automatic gearbox. But having much more power, you can see this is most likely going to wash the Crown Victoria. Oh, it's electric. I didn't realise it was electric. I probably should have been able to tell from the fact that there is absolutely no engine note. Car moving around quite a bit under braking. You can see, I think we only got about 110 kilometers up here with the Crown Vic. We're already well past that. 150, 160 kilometers an hour. Not as quick as some of the later cars will be going though. You can see the car just wanting to rotate on the brakes with how soft the suspension is. That can be a little bit useful though on the gravel. Helps turn the car in. Plenty of torque. I mean, we've seen what was the case in the last rally at Beam Mountains. Fiona's electric car, the Spider E-Brac, just despite being on the higher end of the allowed power, unfortunately just didn't have the acceleration especially the acceleration that you'd expect of an electric car. That's where it was really let down. Whereas you'd expect the electric car to be the best on acceleration and maybe struggle in some other aspect, but yeah, just no acceleration. And the only reason I could sort of explain for it was the fact that it was electric. Yeah, the Maroon going over these bumps at the edge of the road with ease. Some of the later cars will struggle much more. And just being able to open up these corners a little bit more allows us to carry a little bit more speed than we'd be able to if we didn't have the suspension capabilities. We're coming up to the halfway mark now. about 6:43. Now what we've seen with the Crown Victoria is that despite that being sort of halfway distance, doesn't mean it will necessarily be you'll reach that in half the time that it takes you to do the full hill. So the challenge here, I'd say, is to get under a 12-minute. Gotta be careful with these hairpins. You can be coming into them very quickly. And if you don't get your braking wrong, brake too late, you can be in the guardrail, and we've seen a couple of people do that in the rally in the hill climb last week, sorry. And it cost them serious time with picking up damage, braking, steering. Maybe a little bit too sideways there. Sort of doing a little bit of a Scandinavian flick there. Oh, that was a little close for comfort there to the edge of the road. Not just the edge of the road, but the edge of the cliff face. Or the cliff, I should say. One thing about this car is it doesn't really slide around that much. The Crown Vic, the tires weren't quite biting into the ground so much, and it was kind of just skating around a little bit as if it was on ice. That's not really the case here. The car is a little bit more gripped up. But despite having over 530 horsepower, it's not really capable of spinning up its own wheels. So we'll see with later cars, you kind of plant the throttle, spin the wheels up, and that kind of slides you through the second half of the corner. Can't really do that with this. You kind of have to point the car at the exit, and then it will drive in the direction that you're facing. Am I in off-road mode? I don't know. I loaded the car in and then I put it in reverse. Trying to get it off the line. Bit of a cut here, making use of the off-road suspension. Probably comfort, yeah. Another place we can take a nice cut. Use a cut, you know, it kind of drops down a little bit and can get the car into that elevation, which can help drag it into the corner. Like this. The car, you can see bobbing up and down from the bumps on the inside of that cut. Whereas other cars would be bouncing up and down, lifting the wheels up into the air and losing grip, potentially heading off the road because of it. This car just driving over them nice and easily. You know, effectively the road is that much wider for this car than it will be for other cars. You know, that little wide moment there, we'd lose you time in other cars. This thing, nah, not an issue. Dip the car in over there. Throw it over there to keep it flat out through that right-hander. Whereas that'll be very risky in other cars gonna have to slow it down a bit here. This corner is a little bit deceptively tight, especially on the exit. You've got this little mound on the inside, and then you can see how the road cuts in on you on the exit. That caught out one or two people last week. This hairpin. Round there, we should be able to beat the 12-minute mark. It was about 5:40 that we were at the halfway mark. So it was going to be about 11:25-ish if you were to double that time. Not quite that much here. It's going to be an 11:33.6, but sort of closer to that mark, you could say, from the halfway mark. But yeah, that'll easily beat out the Crown Victoria to be our fastest C-Class car. And we can see why is that not working? Hang on a second. Ah, there we go. It fixed. But yeah, that will lead us on to our next car, which is the NTB RK275 Pikes Peak. So the first of our B-Class runners, coming in with 341 horsepower, 860 kilos, generating about 250 kilos of downforce at 200 kilometers an hour. Now, as we're getting into the faster cars, if I do make a mistake and crash them in the early section of the run, I will reset and go again. If I crash at the late end, it's kind of, I don't have the time to rerun it then. We have a nice interior here. Nice sequential box. Now, this car has the same sort of issue that my prototype car for this challenge had as well, where the force feedback is a bit of a... how do I put this? You can probably hear it in the background. But yeah, it's... my wheel seems like it's more like a power drill at the moment than a... there's a little close to that outside sign, which is solid on this map, by the way, if you don't know. Or it's a jackhammer, I think is the thing I'm trying to remember the name of. Let's see what this car can do up this hill. Nearly 200 kilometers an hour. Maybe could have kept the throttle in a little bit longer, but definitely would have been wide for the left-hander. It was a little bit wide as it was. quite getting the car sort of turned into the early part of that corner, but slid around the second part of it quite well. It's one of the things you gotta be concerned about when making a car like this is what happens to the car when you just plant the throttle in the middle of a corner, middle of a hairpin. It's up to 194 kilometers an hour. A little bit deep into this hairpin. Yeah, what happens when you plant throttle? Does the car kind of just go out towards the outside of the corner? Does it sort of spin round to the inside? How controllable is the slide? Oh, look at that! Oh, that was nearly the end of the run there. That's a great example of how the suspension for the Maroon can help it out. I went to take a cut there instead of sort of the car just having a little bobble over it and sort of carrying on. This car, whole car lifted up. And it nearly sent us off the edge of the cliff. Oh, that's in deep. Oh. A little bit of a half spin there. Don't think there's any damage, or if there is, it's very insignificant. Halfway mark at about 450. So we should be expecting a sub 10-minute run. Might be a little bit close. We'll get up to here. 180 kilometers an hour. Yeah, apart from the force feedback acting up, I don't know what causes it, but as I said, I had the same issue with my own car that I was using to test for this event. It was doing the same thing. This car is actually really nice to drive. Do you also see there on the dash, this car does have ABS. It's always best not to rely on the ABS too much. Especially in older cars. You know, the ABS technology just not as good. Here we get up to faster sections now. Over 200 kilometers an hour. Having to take a little bit of a tighter line. I say tighter, not cut the apex as much as we have in the cars so far. Making sure we get the car turned in to these high-speed corners. Oh, there again, the front just lifting up. Middle of the corner. And again there. That's one of the difficulties of tuning, you know. You can tell the road is mostly quite smooth if you stay on it, but when you stray away from it, it does get quite bouncy. You know, do you tune your car to be faster on the smooth parts, or give it a little bit of a tolerance to the bumpy sections? Yeah, no oil pants. Get through there all right, but just don't want to risk pushing too hard through that right-hander. Otherwise, you know, this car, as you've seen, does not handle bumps well. I thought I was a little bit quick into a hairpin, but I got pulled up and turned into the corner. So realizing in these final couple of hairpins, I maybe could have been a little bit more aggressive with this car in the hairpins under braking. But I'll still get a sub 10-minute time, a 9:51.1. And my arms are saved from the rattling of the jackhammer force feedback. But yeah, 9:51.195 will obviously put this car to the top. And yeah, we can see how it compares to the cars so far. So that is the first of our B-class cars down. 3 cars in force feedback will only get better. Who's to say? Next up, our second B-class car, the BeamNG Extract. Sorry, not Extract. I'm trying to look for it in my car list. There it is. Right, so the BeamNG Extract, it's got quite a nice livery on it if you ignore the stickers that haven't quite exported correctly. I'm not too sure. But if you ignore the floating stickers, it's not too bad. And nice. Love it when cars have good first-person interior cameras, and we've been blessed with every car so far. But yeah, let's see how this car goes. Seems like it has a bit of turbo lag. This car, much softer on the suspension. You can see it kind of moving around when you balance the car on the throttle and brakes. So it's going to be a bit more like the police SUV, the maroon, from earlier in that regard. I also need to clutch kick this car a little bit. with the turbo. Car's driving quite well so far. Deep into this hairpin. Though the first gears are quite short, so it might not struggle too much with turbo lag. A bit braver on the inside there. Let's see what this car will get up to. We got by 200, well, I was just shy of 200 for the NTB. Oh, and it's gonna be a little deep here. Just might keep the Pizima on the road. No ABS in this car, so do you have to be careful of locking up. First gear might actually be a little too short to be that useful. Yeah, this car hasn't given me the same confidence under braking as what the was it RK275 did. Little out of shape here. In the wrong gear too. Again, just sliding wide. So it felt like it's a little bit in between gears there. Second, as I've the turbo boost, went down to first, and as soon as the turbo kicked in, I had to shift up. So it kind of felt like I was wasting time shifting gears there. Not really getting the front end response either. Kind of having to rely on the handbrake a bit to get some rotation in the car. Actually hooked up quite well through there. That's where we had the moment with the RK275. I should say first moment, a little bit wide here again. Collecting the wall bit on the outside. Well, if you get this car in the right part of the rev range and just pin and have the throttle pinned, it does kind of rotate quite nicely, but that's not the most consistent in that regard. Yeah, we get to the halfway mark by 5 minutes 14. This car's unlikely to be going at sub 10 minutes. 173 kilometers an hour into this right-hander. Feel like this car's going to struggle with these hairpins a little bit more, given its sort of turbo and gear problem. Probably the best hairpin there so far. A little bit wide through that left-hander. Right now, onto the high-speed section. Might not struggle as much here. Just have to be a little bit careful. The car doesn't have the initial turn-in. I'd prefer it can cut that right-hander a little bit more. The suspension does allow it to. Just see there, the car sort of sliding wide. Have to take it easy. Yeah, I do think the soft suspension, while it does help over the bumps, especially when you're not on the smooth part of the course. The car just does wobble a bit, but wobble a bit more in the corners. Doesn't give it the same grip and platform. As what the RK275 had. We've passed the 10-minute mark. Sliding a bit towards the edge of the road there. Coming up to the end now, you have to be a little bit careful to make sure you make the gate. It's going to be a 10:40.979. Going to be quite a bit slower, nearly 50 seconds slower than the RK275. So we can see that reflected on the scoreboard. And now we can move to probably one of the most interesting car to go up the hill here. Yeah, let me just check the Bizima, 490 horsepower, 1289 kilos. So definitely on the heavier but more powerful side, but only 160 kilos of downforce at 200 kilometers an hour. So that's about a third less than the RK275 while being much heavier. That's where that car struggled, and that's where it was missing out a bit. But yes, next, the most interesting car. Iris has called it correctly. It is Barry Deluxe, the bus from Slough. Yes, this is going to be an interesting one to drive. This is sort of the best first-person view you can have of this bus. It doesn't have a proper interior, which is understandable. It'd be a bit difficult to make. And anyway, it'd probably have all been ripped out to get it to the approximately 1,200 kilos that this bus weighs. Yes, it is lighter than the previous car we just had up the hill climb here. It is actually pretty decent. It's a little bit hard to see from the first person view. Exactly how big the car is, or the bus, sorry. But it's not really sliding around, it's somewhat on rails. Part of that is that this bus produces a whopping 2,700 kilos of downforce at 200 kilometers an hour. Thing is, it will never reach 200 kilometers an hour. I think the top speed in automation was 170 kilometers an hour, though, to be honest, we'll be lucky if we get to that speed on this run, from what I've seen. But as you see here, it certainly has the grip up this hill. But yeah, this Barry probably struggles with too much downforce. I think this view is off to one side. I think this view is driver's side. I kind of want to start messing about with views, but now's not a good time. Also, Barry, as you can probably tell, it is an automatic. It's getting stuck between gears a little bit. Barry hides damage well. Really? Probably suspension wheel damage, yeah, I imagine, yeah, he probably does hide that well. But if the chassis was bent, let's say, I think you might notice on the bus. Top speed here, it was 143 kilometers an hour before we shifted gear and dropped down to 140. See here. Yeah, you can tell with the camera, since it doesn't jump instantly, it kind of travels, you can tell this is on the right hand side of the bus. And then there's this one, which is in the front bumper on the left hand side. And you can tell this one has sound dampening. It's in the car. The bumper one is not in the car. It's on the outside. And doesn't have that sound dampening. So if I remember correctly, it's about 5:10 for the Pizima when I got to the halfway point. It's going to be somewhat similar here for the bus, for Barry. 5:08, so a little bit quicker. And I'll be honest, I think I've been slightly underdriving Barry in the first half of the hill climb. Barry should be flat out for a lot of the higher speed corners at the top of the mountain, given the huge amount of downforce this thing makes. But despite it being flat out, will it be carrying the same corner speed as the other cars? Well, that depends what the top speed is. I clipped that inside rock. The cliff face. I clipped it. I heard it. Luckily, I don't think it would have damaged the tyres. Only 140 kilometers an hour there. You know, that's quite a bit down on what some of the other two B-class cars have done. Barry does struggle a little bit with the hairpins. Oh, game! Why? Why? Come on, game! That's not fair. I thought, oh, let's go into third person, and it's like, oh, right, here you can, looking backwards. Oh, actually, come on, game. It's like when I did it earlier, it's like, oh, yeah, you know, here's your normal view. This time, it's like, no, here's looking at the front of the bus. Backwards, so you can't see where you're going, so you drive off the cliff. I don't have time for this game. Problem is, there's no ideal view for this bus. You know, from the cockpit, which I much prefer on cars. I like being sort of connected with the car, let's just say. You know, you get more of a sense of what the car is doing. You know, the camera is sort of locked to the car, so you see the movements of the car through the camera, which is very essential to sim racing. you know, obviously when you're sim racing, unless you've got a motion rig, you don't have the feeling through your back, through the seat. You only have what you see on the screen and what you feel in the wheel. So that what you see really has to make up for what you don't feel through the seat. Of course, in a view like this, you don't, and especially with the bus, you don't really get a full idea of the size of the vehicle. You know, you can't see any of the vehicle here. You know, and even if we could, we'd just see the A-pillar for the window. The front right corner, which doesn't really tell you where the back of the bus is. And being a bus, it's not the same shape, well, it's similar shape, but not the same size, length as any of the other cars we're driving up here this evening. Game decided not to shift up there, so we did hold the 100 extra couple of kilometers an hour that we lost in the last run. So I really think this run has been quicker. I was a bit more committed through the first section, just kept my foot down a lot more. As I said, I think I was under-driving the car. I certainly was, but I think that could be the case for quite a few of the cars here, since I want to get them to the top, and especially the first bit is learning what are the capabilities of the car. So Barry has a bit of an advantage from, let's say, having a bit of a practice run. Not that I wanted to give it a practice run, but the game decided that that run was not going to continue anymore, and it felt unfair to say that Barry DNF'd because the game said so. So it's by 5:08 that we got to the halfway point. Hopefully we'll be there a few seconds quicker this time. Yeah, I carried like 10 more kilometers an hour through that right-hander. Just a little check, yes. But yeah, we're passing this point, 5:01. We're 7 seconds up. But yeah, now that we're here, I just want to drive this in third person for a little bit. Just an idea of what it's like through the hairpins. It's just then from chase, it's very difficult to see where the front of the bus is. Well, it's not really difficult, but you just don't have as much of an idea. It's not as precise. A little bit tight on the inside there, as we bounce the bus over the inside. That's the right-hander that Barry went off last time. With all the grip that Barry has, he doesn't really spin up the wheels, and therefore can't really slide around the hairpins like some of the other cars will be able to here. Welcome, Artie. Good to see. All right, let's go back to first person. Let's see what speed Barry can get in this section here. As I said, should be easy flat out because Barry isn't grip limited like a lot of cars will be here. It's aero limited. Might be flat out through this right-hander. Do you risk a little lift? Yep, that's easy flat. 125 kilometers an hour, but only got 155 coming into that corner. We've seen, what, 210 from the RK275, I believe. So you can see while Barry's easy flat out through this section, not necessarily gaining time. And there's other cars that might be flat out through most of these corners, but at a much higher speed. We're not too far from the 9-minute mark, just 15 seconds till then. There it is. Will it beat the 10-minute mark? Don't think it will quite. But could it beat... I'll probably most likely beat the 10:40 mark from the X-Track. See a long way down the hill on the right hand side. Make sure not to take this corner too tight. Remember that this camera is on the right hand side of the car in the driver's seat. I think I want first person. Let's just be safe. Well, the 10:40 mark is coming up. But here is the finish. Cross line at 10:34.4. That will see it beat the Bizima X-Track. For second place. It not much quicker, to be honest. If I didn't have to restart for the camera issue, it might not have beat the X-Track there, in fairness. But that's just how things go. So we can see how the leaderboard looks halfway through. And we've got about an hour and a half to run the remaining cars. So we're on good pace, despite that little setback. That is good. But yes, our next and final Group B car to run. Yeah, Barry, by the way, weighs 1,185 kilos, actually making it over 100 kilos lighter than the Bizima. So you wouldn't expect that for a bus. So yeah, obviously someone has stripped every seat, bar the driver's seat, out of that bus to get it that light. Our next car, the final car in B class, the Automobile MISI Group A, comes in with 486 horsepower, 1220 kilos, so it's a good 35 kilos heavier than Barry is. Only has about 150 kilos of downforce at 200 kilometers per hour. So that puts it very similar number to the Pizima, but it is a little bit lighter than the Pizima, and it does have, and it is pretty much equal on horsepower, just a 4 horsepower difference in favour of the Pizima. Let's see, another first-person view. I think the dashes work on this, if I remember correctly. I think they might also wobble around a little bit. So, let us head off. Getting offline. Yep, there wobbles the dash. And, oh, it does not have the turning that I expected it to. Ignore that. But yeah, only 150 kilos of downforce. Someone was telling me in Discord that, oh, their car understeers. As for the RK275, flip me, this does understeer. Yeah, the RK275 understeers nowhere near as much as this. So big difference to the bus that was actually flat out through this whole section on the second run, running a little bit wide. Yeah, but this car just does not have the grip of any of the other cars, and it's gonna cost it a lot of time. At one point for this event, Fiona did say, oh, but mine will have the straight line speed, the top speed. But Pikes Peak doesn't have that many straight parts. It is very twisty, very technical. Also does seem like this car struggles a bit with turbo lag as well. I don't trust it to be flat out through that right-hander. And let's get slowing down for the hairpin here. Handbrake very much needed. So this is one of the higher sections, so where we think about, oh, what top speed can the car get? Problem is, the car needs to brake through this left-hander to make sure it gets through it. Whereas other cars will be flat out. And then we need to brake nice and early for this left-hander. Just about got slowed down. It did just reach 200 kilometers an hour. Big clutch kick to try and get the turbo engaged. But yeah, turbo lag, much like the Pizima, bit of an issue for the automobile here. When the car isn't understeering off the road, it slides quite reasonably, but definitely needs more grip in general. the balance isn't too bad. In fairness, you know, the car slides around, you know, the rear end sort of rotates, but you just can't carry. The same speed as I nearly overshoot that hairpin. Yeah, welcome Orange Ghost. You describe it somewhat reasonably. That's close, eh? I mean, if you remember to when I ran some of the race cars, the classic race cars up here on the tarmac version, we had the Lotus 99T. This is basically that, but on a smaller scale, of course. About to pass the 5-minute mark. We're still a little away from the halfway point. That was as wide as I'd like to be through that right-hander. Yeah, just struggling a bit with the gearing here. 5:30 for the halfway time. So this car might actually be over 11 minutes. Just having to hold the clutch in at points to help the car accelerate when it's kind of in between gears. Yeah, the car really struggling out of that hairpin, just nothing. Down at 11 or 20 or even as low as 10 kilometers an hour there. And the engine itself just takes time to build RPM, even when you put the clutch in. You can't just sort of smash down the clutch for a split second. You have to press it down and hold it for half a second. You know, it's kind of comparable to like a Group B car. Where you've really got to keep up the RPM. And the car isn't really getting down the gears as quickly as I would like. A lot of times I go to downshift and the downshift is rejected because the RPM is still too high. Gonna need to brake a bit for that right-hander. Gonna need to brake a bit for all these corners to make sure get the car turned in. Let's see what top speed we get here. Out wide. Nearly got 210 kilometers an hour. But have to brake so early in this car. You know, that's the highest speed you get on this run, is going into that right-hander, because it's actually a little bit downhill. Gravity helping you out. Of course, being a hill climb, pretty much everywhere else is uphill, but that one little section... Oh, no, 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 no. We can recover this. Everything is fine. But the car, yeah, just doesn't have grip. And where I love the other cars can use their superior downforce to help slow them down in the big braking zones, this car doesn't have that, so, you know, you're pressing the brakes and the car just isn't really slowing down as much as you want it to. We're already past the 10-minute mark. We're for sure going to be passing the 11-minute mark. Really now it's trying to beat the Maroon, which is a C-Class car. I didn't think it'd be able to beat something up here. Gotta be careful through here. Watch out for this little bit here, which I ran over because I know it's in complete control of the car. Gotta brake early. There goes the 11-minute mark. We've got 30 seconds to not be beat by a C-Class car. Of course, that mistake maybe cost about 10 seconds, I want to say. And across the line, an 11:30.2. It will not be beaten by a C-Class car, but yeah, it will be a little bit off the other B-Class cars. Struggling with a lack of grip. That mistake, as I said, it probably did lose 10 seconds or so. Either way, that would have been the slowest B-Class car of the field. And with that, that is all our B-Class cars ran. We are on to the A-Class cars, starting off with the Spaceway R4000. So the big thing that differentiates the A-Class cars to the B-Class cars is the downforce. These cars have a lot more downforce. All of them have more downforce than what they weigh at 200 kilometers an hour. And not just slightly, but by a little margin too. Well, that can be said for any of the other cars except for Barry the Bus, but Barry had a little too much downforce. So Spaceway, 321 horsepower at 808 kilos, but it makes 1,000 kilos of downforce at 200 kilometers per hour. That's the difference. Where the automobile MISI struggled for grip, these cars are gonna fly. Certainly more of a futuristic looking car, this one. Got quite the diffuser on it too. The front aero, a little bit messy, let's just say. We do not have a proper interior cam, so I'm gonna have to third person this, which is not ideal. But we shall make do. Hopefully it goes well. So here we go. Oh, this is automatic? I didn't realise that. But yeah, this car, a lot more grip. As you can see, holding it through, flat out through a lot more of these corners than we were in the automobile. You know, how we're attacking these corners more resembles how we attack them with Barry the Bus, except we're still doing it with an extra 30 odd at least kilometers an hour. No worries about running wide into the sign there. Head up here. Car much more planted. The automatic gearbox, but the auto gearbox is letting it down a little bit. What's the top speed gonna be here? 180 kilometers an hour, but we can brake much later for this left-hander, and we make the corner easily. Some of the other cars trying to brake late, remember we were sliding out wide, not gonna be the case with these A-class cars. Remember though, it's not unlimited grip, there's still limits. Gotta be careful in a couple of places. What speed will we get up to this hairpin? We're usually seeing about 180 from these sorts of cars. 173. Could have probably braked a little bit later. The car sort of understeering a little bit in the second half of that hairpin. We're going to see with the other cars in this class that we should be able to plant the throttle and sort of slide the car around it. You know, controlled power oversteer, you could say. But the automatic gearbox makes that a little bit more difficult for the Spaceway here. Look at the grip we have through that tightening right-hander. Can carry a lot more speed into it. Carry the speed and the car just makes it round the corner. Whereas the other cars were sort of sliding around and scrubbing off the speed. reached the 4-minute mark. We're not too far away from the halfway mark. Yeah, the automatic gearbox making a downshift and then a quick upshift there through that right-hander. That's something that's just going to cost this car time compared to its competitors. Here we are then, 4:39 as we pass the halfway mark. Certainly quicker than any of the cars have been so far. Brake much later for that hairpin than we did in the automobile. I was thinking about flat through that left-hander, but decided not to risk it. I'm not sure if this car has traction control and ABS as well. I feel like it might have traction control, which is one of the reasons why it's not sliding round the hairpins when I plant the throttle, which could be costing it a bit of time too. Passing the 7-minute mark as we crest over the left-hander here to be the faster part of the track. This car easy flat out through there. They'll not quite reach 200 kilometers an hour. But look at that, carried 140 through that right-hander, much faster than the automobile. Gotta be a little bit careful with this left-hander. It is a bit tighter than the corners so far in this section. Of course, where we did go off with the automobile. Passing the 8-minute mark. Take a little lift there, otherwise I thought my friend might off the cliff. There goes the 9-minute mark. Just one hairpin to go. Again, just not getting the rotation through the second half of the hairpin there as I'd like. And up to the finish. A 9:43.0 will obviously put this car to the top of the times. Not by as much as I thought it would. Only a 9:43. That's by 8 seconds quicker than the RK275, which was previously topping the time board. But let me sort out the standings. Something's not working quite correctly. I'd like to know why my formula isn't working. I'll fix it? No. Well, as you see here, the scoreboard isn't updating correctly. I don't know why. Let me number. Ah, that fixes it. I think it was a formatting issue. Anyway, with that solved, we can get on to the next A-Class car. Welcome, Adabo. We are through 7 of our cars so far. That leaves 3 to go. And we're in good time, which is always good. Might even get to do the Art of Rally stage today. I wasn't planning on it due to the tight timings, but it looks like we will have time for it. So, the next car that we've got, a very interesting looking car coming up. It is the KMW 997 Rally. If you were here last Saturday for the main event, you'll know that this is a classic Le Mans prototype built to go up Pikes Peak. And as such, it looks quite interesting. To be honest, it's a little overkill. You know, the front wing on the top is kind of makes the front look a bit messy. The wings on the back, yeah, maybe a little bit too big, I've got to say. But let's see. We do have a nice first-person view, though, which is always appreciated. Only one car that has disappointed us so far. But yeah, let us well, let's go over the car stats quickly. 224 horsepower at 564 kilos. This produces 700 kilos of downforce at 200 kilometers an hour. So it's on the lighter end compared to the Spaceway, but sort of similar ratios, you could say. But this car does have a manual control box. This car seems very positive to steering inputs. Rear end maybe slightly floaty. It's a little bit difficult to tell what the car's doing exactly with the level of force feedback that I'm getting from it. Bit tight there, risking it over the bumps. But yeah, I want to say this car has power steering. I just remembered this is the very loud car, so apologies for the audio balancing. Not much I can do about it. No, well, that's the concrete thing that you're not meant to hit. Oopsies. Let me turn down the sound a little bit. I think I went to about here on the stream last week, so you can actually hear me on the run up the hill. But yeah, this car a little bit more challenging. Let's try again. We do have the time. Be very careful with the steering wheel. You know, certainly a little bit more worried about the back end of this car just sliding out of the corner. And taking the car wide with you, rather than sort of the front not turning in. Car does seem to be naturally aspirated. So it has good throttle response compared to the turbocharged cars that we've seen. Let's see what the top speed is up here. By 190 kilometers an hour. So not the fastest we've seen, but still very respectful speed. Nicely around the hairpin. Nice thing about a naturally aspirated engine is you don't feel like you're between gears as often. Oh, that was really nice. Third gear around that hairpin too. What speed do we get up to this hairpin? 186 kilometers an hour. Maybe could have been an extra kilometer an hour had I braked a little bit later. Bit of a per line through there though. I will fire through this long right-hander. Very nicely into the second part of it. Very nicely through that long left-hander too. Oh, a little bounce over the bump there. Passing the 4-minute mark now. Had a bit of a lock up there, so this car not running ABS most likely. Definitely not running traction control, which is ideal. 420, let's say, at the halfway mark. So this car definitely possible for a sub 9-minute run. Yeah, you gotta be careful about slamming the brakes on. A little bit too quick into that hairpin, mainly because I locked up in the braking zone. Had to lift off the brakes to unlock the front tyres. About 173 kilometers an hour that I saw there. Can just throw the car around. It's really nice to drive around these hairpins. When you don't get the tyres locked up on the brakes. The car does struggle a little bit with hairpins if you don't get the braking right. If you're too early on the brakes, you haven't quite got the weight over the front axle as much, and you don't get the rotation in the car. See, that was a little bit better there. But of course you don't want to be too late on the brakes, as the consequences can be very severe with these guardrails. Using the handbrake very effectively for that hairpin to get the car rotated. Welcome, Kevin. Good to see you. We're currently on car 8 of 10. The second of our 4A class cars. We've gone through all the 2C class cars. We've gone through the 4B class cars. You can see those standings when we complete this run here. Oh dear. The car not liking the bumps there, so we didn't get a true indication of how it would be top speed wise there and through the right hander. And yeah, as I said, we've currently ran 1A class cars so far. This is the second. Oh, that was a little sketchy. Oh, getting a little nervous with this car now, to be honest. Having to balance the steering. through the corners where you don't need the car sort of fully loaded. The rear ends, it's sort of easy to kind of over-rotate the car. Make sure not to run wide through there. We know what those bumps can be dangerous. Through there all right. A little bit nervous for this left-hander coming up. Yeah, those bumps on the inside, not kind to the car. I think we are going to miss out on the 9-minute mark. There goes the 9-minute mark. Oh, the car nearly spinning on the run to the line. Definitely picking up damage from hitting the gate there. A 905.5 there in the end. It's it could have been a little bit better, but whether it'd be enough to beat any of the 2 remaining A-class cars, I don't know. But yeah, we can look at the leaderboard now. So 905.5 is the benchmark for the next for the 2 remaining A-class cars yet to run. But I know we've got 2 strong contenders to run up the hill still. One of which we seen last week, and that'll be the next one to run. We seen last week, ran by 2 people, took the top 2 spots in the standings. So yeah, this car will in a way be one to beat, but the second car still to run wasn't ran last week, so but I know it will be good. So, next up, the WAZ Sloboda. It did set a sub 9-minute run last week in the hands of Orange Ghost, who did build this car. It's a little bit heavier than KMW, 257 horsepower at 647 kilos. Does make more downforce, 900 kilos at 200 kilometers an hour. So, yeah, this should be a real contender. We have this bonnet cam. The lighting is a little bit annoying. Don't want to use it. I'll use it. I think I'd still rather have this than off-board. Not ideal. Sorry for the glare. Gonna have to put up with it as we get going here in the WAZ. Can already tell immediately the force feedback is much heavier. Suffering a little bit with the jackhammer issue. I'm struggling to tell a little bit. Does the car just want to understeer a little bit because of its handling, or if it's just how heavy the force feedback is? Much heavier on this car. But the bouncing, the sort of jackhammer effect, as we said for one of the prior cars, not as bad in this one, but is slightly there, so apologies if you can hear it a bit through the mic. But the car does feel a little bit understeery, which isn't my preference, but it might be the safe way. Let's just hope I don't leave it to understeer off of the road at some point. Okay, in fairness, it rotated quite well through that hairpin. Though it didn't need handbraking, not as well through that right-hander there. I had to go down a gear. Let's see what speed it does up the hill here. 188 kilometers an hour. Yeah, I'm just struggling to trust the front end as much as I want to. Rotated there once we put the foot down. Nicely round that hairpin with use of some handbrake. I feel like handbrake is going to be very pivotal in this car throughout this run. Let's see what top speed it gets up to here. Wasn't too bad through that right-hander there. How will it fare through this long, tightening right-hander? Tried a little bit of handbrake to help it rotate, was still a little bit wide. A little bit of handbrake again. Did get it turned in better for the left-hander there. Got around that hairpin nicely. Yeah, you put your foot down and the car does rotate a little bit better. You just have to trust the car a bit when you plant your foot down. So the halfway mark, 2:23. I think that's a little bit slower than what the KMW did. KMW did lose a bit of time in the second half of the stage. And as I mentioned, it did enhance the Orange Coast to a sub 9 minute last week. Of course, Orange Coast having made the car will have made it drive how they wanted to. Not necessarily to how I'd like it to drive, so I might not get the same pace out of it. Plus, I've done no practice with it. This is the first time I'm driving most of these cars. I did drive a couple. Not in the past week, but before last week's event. But wasn't for very long, for maybe about a kilometre or two. A little bit deep into that hairpin, but got the car rotated round. Little bit tight there. The bump on the exit did get in the way slightly. very nicely through that hairpin. Gotta say, the car does actually handle very nicely through the hairpins. You do need the handbrake to get the car rotated into it, but then you put the foot down and the car power slides its way through the hairpin very nicely. Now the high speed section of the hill. Struggled to see the right-hander a little bit with the glare. Got through with by 140 kilometers an hour minimum speed. Over 200 kilometers an hour top speed there. Yeah, car's got understeer a bit through that right-hander. Not sure what was the best gear to be in at that point. Welcome, Geeky. We are on our penultimate car. About to approach the 8-minute mark, a little bit wide there. Not long to go, only about a couple of kilometers. A little bit daring with the side of the road through the quick right-hander just previously. Final hairpin now. Throwing the car around there. Not going to get sub 9 minute with it. Through the final corner. It will be the fastest so far. 9 minute 3.3. A couple of seconds quicker than the KMW. But we'll still go to the top of the leaderboard. And we can look at that leaderboard now. Oh, I've slightly typoed that. There we go. 903.340. Leaves us with one car to go. This car not ran last week, but comes in as the lightest car out of all being ran today. The final car, the Mad Mirage. 190 horsepower, the least powerful car here, but only weighing 179 kilos, while still making 600 kilos of downforce at 200 kilometers an hour. This could be a little bit difficult to drive with how quick it is, especially to drive on the limit, but we have a nice first person camera for us. Nice dash. Let's see what we can do in this car. Car once again suffering from the, as I've dubbed it, jackhammer effect through the force feedback. It's a little bit twitchy, but has a lot of grip, so much so that I'm confident to go flat out through those right-handers there. Maybe a little too brave on how much I cut there. Car is a little bit twitchy in a way. It is very direct, but the rear end's more planted than the KMW was, so it's a little bit more confidence inspiring. How does it do in the first braking zone? The rear end really wanted to swap ends in that braking zone, but it's definitely too early on the brakes. But that is good to know for the future. No ABS on this car, so do have to be wary of front locking. Let's see what top speed we get up here. Less than 200 horsepower, so it is struggling a little bit, only 175 kilometers an hour. But we'll be trying to make that sort of time lost on the run up that hill through a lot of these corners. Wasn't too bad through the first hairpin. Or it's actually the second hairpin. I keep forgetting about the left-hand hairpin, where we sort of first really truly test the heavy braking performance of the cars. The car rotates really nicely into the hairpin and has a good power band. So even when we were a little low in the rev range there, the car still accelerated very nicely out of the hairpin. Back end slid quite a bit in the first half of that right-hander. Actually put me on a purr line for the second part of the corner where it tightens up, which meant I couldn't carry the same minimum speed, or the ideal minimum speed I would have wanted to. This car is just a little bit tricky to drive. Doesn't do exactly what you want it to. A little bit difficult to sort of position precisely where you want it to be. As we come up to the halfway mark, about 4:22. Once again, I think it's going to be tight here for if we beat the 9-minute mark or if we take the top time. It's, I think, a very similar halfway mark time to the WAS. Again, see the rear end just stepping out under braking with the weight transfer. Flat out through that left-hander. I know with the limited power that this car has, it needs to just carry whatever speed it can through corners like that. Gotta be careful not to slide the rear end of that car into the barrier on the right-hand side while starting to brake through the right-hander. Now over the hairpin section into the higher speed section. (180 kilometers an hour). What will we get up to? About 195. Again, carrying about 143 through the right-hander. Down a gear while remaining flat out. Scrubbing a little bit of speed off for the left-hander here. Maybe could have been a little braver on the brakes there. Don't drive off the edge, that'd be stupid. Maybe a little time the inside there, the car bouncing over the bumps. Threatening her it quite a bit. Less than a minute to get to the top. Easy flat through that right-hander. How will we fire through this left-hander? I had a little bit of a lift, had to shift down, bounced over the inside of the corner. I'd say I did a poor job at that hairpin. 20 seconds. Not only are we trying to beat the 9-minute mark, but we want to at least try and beat the WAS in this. It's going to be close. It's not going to beat the 9-minute mark. Around the final corner, there goes 903. It's not beat the WAS, but it has beat the KMW. That was close. That was close. That was... very close. We can see the final times. Oops. You didn't see anything. Yeah, remembering back to the KMW, I had a little moment sort of through that final left-hander. The car got sideways and I dropped a bit of time. If I didn't drop that time, the KMW might have beat the Mad Mirage. But that is very close indeed. And I think that's a testament to say how close all three of those top cars are. You know, it should be said, I've barely driven, if driven, the all these cars at all before this. Um, to drive them up here to such a close time, I don't think indicates exactly, oh yeah, the Waz was definitely the quickest here. Because you put different drivers in here, you slightly tune the cars a bit for each driver, and well, a different car can very likely end up beating the other two. Um, so yeah, that's how close it was. Um, like for example, we do have comparisons from last week. Last week times was an 8:57.5 from Orange Ghost in the Waz Sloboda, so that was nearly 6 seconds quicker. Same with the Spaceway R4000 Viper did a 9:24.2, whereas I did a 9:43. I was nearly 20 seconds slower than Viper was in their own car. And that just shows you how much driving style and having the car tuned to your liking, and also having practice and knowing exactly what the car is going to do, how much an effect it can have. So yeah, those are top three A-class cars. The Spaceway R4000, as I mentioned, Viper was nearly 20 seconds quicker than it, so I probably didn't do that car quite justice. While I didn't make any mistakes, I obviously didn't get the full potential out of the car. But yeah, it's still most likely the slowest of the four A-class cars, not able to quite compete at the top. Most likely due to its automatic gearbox, to be honest. And if it does have traction control, that too, you put in a sequential gearbox there, take off TC, you can leave ABS in, ABS can be helpful, and that car would be definitely closer to the other A-class cars. Whether it could beat them, not entirely sure, but it would definitely be closer. Looking towards B-class cars, the RK275, not too far off the A class cars. Again, sub 10 minute. The time it ran at 10:28 up the hill. So I was over 35, nearly 40 seconds quicker than what Not the Bees ran last week in it. So definitely can say I got most of its potential, if not very close to its full potential there, most likely. Despite the fact Not the Beast said that, you know, if I tuned the car, that it had more potential in there. But of course, you can probably say that for all of the cars here if you did a bit of beam tuning to them. But yeah, it definitely beat the competition. The Barry Deluxe saying a 10:34.4 for a bus. It is pretty competitive. Had it had a bit less downforce, maybe take off a fifth of the downforce, let's say. A fifth to a quarter of the downforce, where you still have a lot of grip. It's still really planted to the road, but it doesn't have quite as much drag, so it just has a little bit more top speed and can carry a little bit more. It doesn't have as much drag holding it back. It could definitely be a step closer to getting to the sub 10-minute mark. The Bazima X-Track was. It also had an automatic gearbox, if I remember correctly. My memory's starting to fade of the early cars, to be honest. Yeah, I think it had an automatic. Let me look at the data for it. Yeah, it was. I think it was missing a bit of power to weight. It was like down 0.1 kilowatts per horsepower compared to a lot, not 0.01, that is, not 0.1, 0.01, which probably obviously hurt it a little bit, and it could have done with a bit more downforce. and another car that could have done with a lot more downforce, the Automobile MISI Group A. It had a decent balance, it just really struggled for grip overall. You couldn't carry the speed through corners that you needed to, and that's ultimately what held it back from being closer to the B class cars and nearly dropping it down to the Zoix Marion, first of our C class cars. I did not expect it to be as close to our slowest B class cars. That car actually did surprisingly well for not maxing out its power to weight, for having very little downforce. I think it does actually have lift, but I'm not 100% confident. And I'd have to recheck that. Um, I wrote it down as having lift apparently, so I might have been wrong, might have misread at the time. But yeah, that for being a car that wasn't built to maximize performance, that didn't do too badly. And then, of course, we have the Super Drop Sunset Mark 1, the Crown Victoria. Not much more to say about that. It second most powerful car here, or second least powerful car here, while having the most weight. It was never going to do well. Having no downforce as well, it had no grip. It slid around an awful lot. But yeah, it did go sub 15 minutes, which isn't too bad, I guess. Yeah, it was definitely in a little league of its own. The one positive thing I can say is I didn't do any testing. I purely used the numbers in automation to make up those classes. It was a bit of a guess, an estimated, an educated guess, let's say. And well, all the cars did turn out in class order, which I'm quite reasonably happy about. Now, initially when I started stream, I didn't think I would have time for this, but we have finished in good timing. As I mentioned at the start of the stream, I do have to be somewhere for 9 o'clock, but we are far from at 9 o'clock. So, what we can do is, welcome. We're going to finish off stream as we usually do here, with a bit of Art of Rally. For those that aren't here usually for streams, at the end of every stream, I like to go on to Art of Rally here, and I like to do the daily and or weekly event. Now, I've already done the weekly event this week. We'll have a quick check of where we sit on the leaderboard. Today is the final day. It ends in a few hours. We're currently sitting 40th in the top 10%, which isn't too bad. We have done better previously, though. 23rd, that was a good week towards the start of September. Had the odd bad week as well. In the daily event here, did it on our previous swings streams this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'm streaming South Corsa and ACC racing regularly, so I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, Tuesday got 38th, top 15%, then improved up to 36th on Wednesday, and then dropped back down to 42nd on Thursday. Those didn't feel like bad runs. They felt like good runs, but they just weren't that quick, apparently. Let's see what we have in store today. We have a Group B car at a Japan stage, 3.7 mile gravel stage. Let's see what Group B car we have. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest, at first glance. But let's see how we can do. Cut that corner a little bit, but not too much that the game resets us. It does reset you if you go too far off the road, and there isn't a clear indication of where those reset points are. And when the game resets you, of course, you have to accelerate from a stationary again, and it gives you a 5-second time penalty, so they're very costly. Slowing down for this junction. Hit that braking point quite well. I don't remember Volvo having a Group B car. I feel like if they did, I'd know about it. It's felt like a clean, tidy run so far, but I said that last all week so far, and the times haven't been that great. Over the crest, they're a little bit wide. Certainly, again, this Group B car, whatever it is, very sideways. There's the finish just up ahead. Slight left. Cross line, 2 minute 22.3. Yeah, it does seem odd. I don't think I know any boxy car in Group B2. Maybe it's not an actual real car, it's a fictional car inspired by something like a Volvo. It could be. But yeah, at the end of that, we finished 34th. Top 15%. Very similar to how I've done all week, in fairness. But yeah, it felt like another clean run that might have had me a little further up. But yeah, that is being consistent with this week, I suppose. But yeah, that is going to do it for today's stream. Hope you all enjoyed the cars being ran up Pikes Peak. They were all quite good to drive. It's nice not driving something that's mentally quick like the F1 cars and such that we drove up Pikes Peak last time. Those were mental and up good weight as well. Nice to have something that's a little more tame. But yeah, those were a lot of fun. Yes. I'll be back next week. As I mentioned, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I do regular racing at the moment. We are on week 5 of all the series that we're doing. The series, they are on Tuesday, we have a World Touring Car Cup on the original Assetto Corsa. This week will be at Mid Ohio. That stream will be starting at about 8 p.m. UK time for qualifying. Then on Wednesday, we have a Ginetta Spec Cup on ACC. That will be at Alton Park this week. And that's the penultimate round for that. That will start by quarter to 8 p.m. UK time. So 7:45. And then on Wednesday, we have a Open GT4 Cup. Also on ACC, that will be at Brands Hatch GP. Then that'll also start 7:45 p.m. UK time, quarter to 8. And on Wednesday and Thursday, we'll also be doing a GT3 race on LFM, Low Fuel Motorsport, after those league races. But yeah, that's the plans for now. Thank you everyone for being here. We had a great turnout. Iris being here the whole time. Ice, Geeky, Artie, Adabo, Kevin, Orange Ghost, and Solid Orange. Great to see everyone being here for the runs up Pikes Peak. I don't know exactly when the next Beam orientated thing is. Hopefully it won't be too long. But I do have to work around other people, unfortunately. So can't fire straight into something else just yet. But we'll hopefully get something in the not too distant future. But yes, I have to go now, so that will do it. Thank you all for being here. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you all enjoy the rest of your weekend. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you for some more streams next week and in the future too. Yeah, but for now, take care, everyone. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.